Hello, hello. In this episode of Happy Healthy Homes, we are diving deep into the power of design, leadership, and passion with someone who has truly shaped the way I see the world of spaces and well being. My guest today is Deb Auckland, an incredible, intelligent, and passionate professional who currently serves as an assistant director at the Department for Education, where she leads a team managing the construction of some of the most complex building and inspiring new school projects. Beyond her remarkable career, Deb is also a devoted mom to a vibrant 12 years old boy, a lover of good books, and someone who finds joy in European adventures, especially France. I have a very special connection with Deb. Deb and I probably know each other for more than 10 years now, and she's much more than a colleague to me. I consider Deb my mentor, my guide, and truly one of the reasons why I felt in love with materials, textures, and how spaces can affect our senses and overall well-being. Everything I know today about design with purpose, I learned alongside her. In this conversation, we'll talk about what really takes to lead and manage complex educational projects that shape children's daily experience, how spaces can deeply influence learning, behavior, and well being, the importance of passion and purpose in leadership, and the lesson we can all take as professionals and parents about building environments that support growth, safety, and connection. Whatever you are, a designer, teacher, parent, or simply someone who loves learning about our surroundings and how it shapes us, this episode will leave you inspired to look at your home, your work, and your purpose in completely new way. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm so excited to do this interview with you. Let's start from the beginning. I want to know what inspired you to study architecture.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Etch. It's always great to have a conversation with you, two passionate women doing the things that they love to do. What inspired me? I think the way I found my path towards architecture was through the end of school. I really loved art and I really loved the sciences and maths. And I thought that architecture was a way to bring that all together. And in year 12, as my final art project, I actually focused on tropical housing design. So I had lived in Darwin for a number of years growing up, and I just loved the housing and how that responded to climate. It was so unique to place. And I kept thinking about that as I was moving through. And then I focused my art study, art pieces, and some research on tropical housing. And I think that's sort of embedded that idea that architecture might be the place for me.
How those houses were designed?
Yeah, absolutely. In the early, probably the 19th, there was an architect called Benny Burnett who really looked at developing a housing style that responded to climates. Living spaces were on ground under a big undercroft, and then bedrooms were lifted upstairs. And the walls were pretty much all louvered and casement windows. So it really took advantage of when the breeze came through in the afternoon, open the house up, let the environment in and clear it of, the hot build-up of air. And they're just really beautiful pieces of architecture. And you walk in full of daylight, fresh air, and really just responding to the environment as much as possible. Of course, there's going to be periods of time where the building can only do too much naturally to respond to the environment. But gosh, they're really beautiful spaces to be in.
Did you have the opportunity to live in one of those houses?
No, we didn't, unfortunately. So when we moved up there, we were living in a house that was built in response to Cyclone Tracy. And there was a response to come down from being built on columns and a frame onto slab on ground, a very southern response to climate. And, it wasn't comfortable to live in that house. But there were houses that did survive Cyclone Tracy, the buildings that were built in the late 1930s. It actually survived the World War II bombings in Darwin and still there, owned by the National Trust now, to go and have a look through. So there's still really great examples of the original architecture and housing types there. Unfortunately, didn't live in one.
That's a shame because sounds so good. And that was actually my next question. What was any specific moment, person, or experience that made you realize that was your path? And
Yeah, I
that
think
was this beautiful buildings, yeah?
I think that was it, that I really saw how there was a response to climate through the built environment, and I didn't really see it anywhere else in Australia. Queensland, of course, had their Queenslanders, but sort of down south, it wasn't so much. I mean, obviously we have our, Federation homes and has built through history, but that was a real response to climate. And I don't know, it stuck with me.
That's amazing. And do you wanna talk about more about your career? I know you lived in different places and you have this amazing experience to share with us.
Sure. Well, I was lucky enough to start off when I graduated as a graduate in the government sector in their building construction department, and learnt a lot. Lots of mentors there who guided me through sort of the first 10 years, but a lot of focus in education and schools design. I had a couple of stints over with the education department on secondment, and I guess that's where my passion for education facility design was really entrenched. Went down to live in Hobart, and also working for the education department down there, which was amazing as well. Tassie Education is a leader as well in terms of their response to student needs and really trying new ways of working with space and response to pedagogy. And then came back to Adelaide, worked in private practice again, and have eventually ended back with the education department in South Australia.
Your journey in education is a beautiful journey.
Lots
So
of
it's so much.
experiences on both sides of client and professional services consultant. So it's given a really good understanding of perspective, I think.
She'll probably not tell us, but she has so many award-winning projects. And is there one that truly touched your heart? Something that stayed with you, and why?
The projects that most touch my heart are the ones that help to realise a transformation in an educational care program, or improve or help to improve operations or the safety and wellbeing of students and staff. So I find immense satisfaction in helping to improve the human condition in some way, and to see clients experience some sort of positive change through a project, and that's a really beautiful thing. One example is a project at Christie Downs Primary School. The school had a vision to fully integrate their disability unit classes with mainstream classes in their school redevelopment, and this was well before the Royal Commission into Violence, Abuse, Neglect and Exploitation of People with Disability. And that Royal Commission recommended an end to segregated learning environments. And this school was doing it already, and they wanted to do it in a much more integrated way. So the leadership team and staff were truly inspiring, and they had a really clear vision of their students learning side by side, regardless of need. So these were children that had significant healthcare needs, needing a lot of behavioural support, but there was a true commitment to create integrated indoor and outdoor learning spaces that provided equal opportunity to access the learning program. So the new learning communities, we had one new building and one refurbished building, and the premise of them was designing around a central kitchen and shared meals area. So the focus was for students to come together communally various times of the day and really develop those social relationships, getting to know each other, getting to know staff, and building those supports, so that when they went back into their learning spaces or learning programs, there was already this really rich community built together and understanding of different and complex needs. So the new connected spaces were a far cry from what was there originally. And so the existing buildings and outdoor areas were, the single secure classroom. Directly adjacent to that, there was a veranda. Pool fencing went up to the underside of the veranda. So, while it was a secure boundary to the outdoor space, which some children will need, it was really visually oppressive, and it gave the learning environment a really institutional feel. And I'm sure, a lot of people have seen some of the past special school designs. So we worked with Tara Graham Cochrane from Design Will Landscape Architects, and we were able to create integrated outdoor landscape learning and play areas that acted as transition spaces. So there were these different layers and types of boundaries to define the outdoor space, and it was a graduated approach so that students had the agency to self-regulate and work out where they needed to be at a certain time of day, whether they needed or felt more secure in a more how could we describe it? Intimate, or something that had a bit more boundary to the space, to then go into more of a transition zone and then out into the general outdoor learning and play spaces. So it was really about how they chose and needed to interact with their peers and the rest of the student population at any point in the day, really. So that was, yeah, really special.
What I love about this project is because you mentioned how the educators had such a clear vision. And then you, as the architect and a landscape architect, worked together to create this beautiful space for the children. And what people don't understand most time is that the project has so many people working together to provide that spaces, but we are more like guiding, because when we have a client with such a clear intention and vision, amazing how things just flow, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it made the whole process, as you say, it flowed really well. And we built, beautiful friendships between the design team and the leadership team as well. But it did take a bit of a leap of faith, because we were probably pushing some of the accepted standards in regards to special schools and, lines of security and some of the things that had historically been implemented. We were trying to do things differently, but that was absolutely led by the leadership team. If that wasn't their vision and something they were really committed to, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, but that project then became like an inspiration for so many other projects. Even to now, they use that project as an example.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that it's 10 years old now. But it really is a bit of a guiding light to others who would like to follow and implement in a new way.
Amazing project. Thank you for that example. Like any profession, design had its highs and its challenges. Could you share a project or moment that was particularly difficult? Particularly difficult? What you learned from that experience?
I thought I might discuss something that's actually a fairly common challenge. The profession absolutely has highs and challenges through, most projects, to be honest. One thing that we're always grappling with is where client expectations exceed an agreed scope or budget. And these can be really challenging conversations to navigate. And so a lot of time can be spent testing options to, just see if you can make it work and try and, match what they want in terms of a wish list or desire list or even need to a budget that in sometimes has moved on by 3 years from the time where, money was approved. I guess coming to terms with sometimes there actually isn't an answer that will provide everything that someone wants or needs with the money available. So I think I've learnt that an approach is to try and make space work harder, like understand how much space in terms of floor area can be afforded, and then really try to work with a client to understand what are the functional needs. Are there any shared functions that, can come together? We can tweak the fit out. How can a space do more than one or two things to try and match, a program into a space that may be less than what was desired originally? And also working with different user groups to, think about, well, how could you actually share this space? Do you necessarily need your own or discrete space? We know construction costs have changed and land availability is getting scarcer. How do we make the space and land that we have to work with work harder, really?
Just make that change on being a bit smarter and a bit more practical with these spaces. That's a really good example, because that's one of the main things I also feel regarding projects, because we come across a budget, a scope, and sometimes we cannot deliver everything on this scope. So you need to work together with those clients to make that scope work.
Absolutely.
And when I think about that, I'm trying to bring in how our listeners can bring that into their homes and make those, because we also know that children need some typical areas in the house, but how they could make those spaces work harder and better for them. Do you have any idea? Any tips? Or
Yeah, look, I think it's something that you've spoken about really well. It's about creating your nooks or your corners or spaces within a space that serve a purpose, and you can do that quite affordably or effectively with furnishings, loose furniture or fabrics, or just arranging things in a different way so that it does feel like this is a discrete function within, a broader program of spaces, which is exactly the same for living spaces as well.
that's an awesome point of view. Thank you. You designed everything from childcare centers to schools, innovations, libraries. So much experience in educational spaces. If you could give parents five practical things they can do at home to support their children's well-being and learning environment, what would it be?
Some really good conditions is, and again, this is something that you have spoken about, is sort of natural daylight and ventilation just for your core well-being. So I think beauty and aesthetics go a long way as well, just for that sense of wonder and intrigue. It just sparks imagination. Having a little bit of, you know, diversity, so different spaces to go with, or maybe it's organising a space, differently over time, moving some things in, moving things out. You don't need everything out at once in a space. And it makes it fresh and new for young children. And then I think it's also where you can, being able to connect to the outdoors, even if it's a view outside. That connection to nature and biophilia is just something that's innate in all of us. And just to be able to have that can really help with personal well-being. Feelings of anxiety, and especially in young children, is becoming much more prevalent. So, supporting them, trying to self-regulate in that way is really important.
You brought so many important things, and one of the things I keep talking about is natural light ventilation. But when we talk about biophilia, I feel like we are blessed to be here in Australia because we have so many natural places. However, as we can see, even in Australia, as you mentioned before, a lot is becoming so expensive, and they are building really small houses without that availability of looking into a garden or looking outdoors to a park. Do you have any advice or anything parents could do to bring in the nature to the children?
I think a lot can be done in the choice of the materials or colours or textures and fabrics that are in a space. There can be a lot of overwhelm experience, and we know this from learning environments, but equally for living environments, explosions of primary colours and, just multiple things that visually attract. And when you think of the interactions with phones, it's all, just that high energy, lots of input coming at you. If they can have a space where that is just calmed down
Yeah.
in terms of neutral palettes of materials and colors and textures and patterns. That was something that I would recommend.
I always say, let the toys shine, isn't
Yes,
it?
exactly. It's something that educators talk about a lot as well. Is let the schoolwork or things that are produced or made in the school environment, let that be the story rather than the built environment coming at you, and then you're layering all the things that children are creating on top of that. It's too much.
The other day, I did a workshop on healing spaces, and I showed some examples how to showcase the children work. And some parents were so surprised. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I was like, yes, this is the most beautiful thing you can do. Just showcase your kids' work.
Yes, yes,
You
yeah.
don't need the wall to be red. Isn't
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I still have one of Ollie's kindergarten paintings they did for their end of year Christmas auction hung up because I think it's so beautiful.
Oh, I'm sure it is. And I think sometimes you do need to frame them. It's
Yeah,
special.
absolutely. It is
And
special.
I'm sure he feels good when he sees it as well. And
Yeah.
his story, you can say, "Oh, this was when you were little. How old was he when he did the painting?"
Yeah, 5. Yeah.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah,
Yeah,
group project, and he had 2 other of his friends, and they did it together, so it brings back those memories of those friendships too, so lots of things.
that's beautiful. Over the past year, you have been involved in managing several new school projects. What are some of the priorities you're seeing now that were considered as important 10 years ago?
I think, we're definitely focusing on, sort of greater inclusion and wellbeing supports, so there's a lot more understanding of diverse needs of learners, and there's just a lot more open discussion about students' needs. So that is becoming part of the suite of spaces that we provide. Cultural and community sports as well. Communities look very different in terms of makeup than they did, even a few years ago. How do we support different cultures coming together on school sites, particularly when a new school is developed? It's where the community itself is really new. So how do you help the community grow and develop their own sense of self? And a school can be one of those things that brings them together. So how do we help them to do that in the spaces that we provide? Another would be regeneration of country. What can we do to repair damage that has been done through generations of different types of use? Even farming have degraded the country. So, what is it that we can give back? And children can see them helping to regenerate country as well.
That's amazing. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's such a big impact because bringing them to help to do that. And that's throughout landscaping.
Yeah, absolutely. Landscaping, where there might be a watercourse nearby or even through a site, how do we, acknowledge the stories that would have been associated with Aboriginal culture for waterways? How do the children help to regenerate and make that healthy again? Yeah, there's some really special things that are being done. So it's amazing to see. And we're all learning from the process as well. So it's good.
That's awesome. And there is a lot of integration of the value of the land and bringing some more of Aboriginal input on those designs as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Engaging with the local Aboriginal community or those that they've appointed to sort of speak on their behalf. Having the Aboriginal community engaged before we even have design teams on is what we are trying to do. And, it's a learning journey for all of us, but we start from somewhere and move on.
I think it's beautiful. We need to start those somewhere. And I think it's really, sometimes we're so afraid to make mistakes that we stop ourselves to move forward. But I
Yes,
feel like it's starting to engage them and acknowledging that we have different cultures. This is really nice and try to bring that together.
absolutely. Being silent rather than feeling silly about asking a question is worse. What else? Contemporary priorities. So, I think, having various different settings for different modes of learning, we are looking more at having explicit teaching and learning spaces alongside independent, sort of self-directed or project-based or group work. So, I think there's been sort of a cycle of explicit spaces only and then very open. But I think we're coming back to having a balance and understanding that for different types of learning, there needs to be sort of a more concentrated space and working together. And then in some cases, it's more appropriate to have more of a open and fluid relationship with the learning program. So, and then I think that connection to biophilic design and natural systems just helps us to expand our thinking about sustainability as well. That's really coming as a hopefully more integrated approach than something that's seen as an environmental approach that's added on to a building.
That's really nice how that's been taught from the beginning and
Mm,
how everything is integrated. And what I feel that we need to start designing more to respect the land as well. And that's what you're doing because I feel like all the school and commercial designs, we are starting to do that, but still the housing and the construction for housing is still so far ahead of that reality. And most people don't have the, I would say, luxury
Yes.
to build a purpose designed house for the land, and they
Mm.
end up having to live in a house that was just built by a builder. And
Yeah.
that's why I feel like it's so good for us to come here and have a chat and start just to trying to help them to bring those elements, even if it's afterthought a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what the beautiful thing is our children are the best teachers. So, the small things that they might learn at school about waste management, or separation of for recycling, or how to what plantings might be appropriate for the area. These are little bits that they can take home to their families. And it might be passed on in some way, and they do a little bit at home, and it's just filtering through, and they can take and build at home what they might they might build a real passion for it.
I just wanna, now that you touched on the children, I think it would be nice for us to mention a little bit. I worked with children before, and as you said, they're so honest and they're genuine. They don't have like, they just say what they feel. And sometimes I just learn so much with them. Even my daughter being 7 months, I'm learning so much with her.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this experience of workshops with children and how, as a designer, you integrate their input into the project.
When we do workshops with children, it's really trying to understand about how space makes them feel. It's not sort of searching for their suggestions on what a space might look like as such, but it's really understanding where they feel safe, where they have fun, where they like to socialize, where they like to learn. I mean, a lot of the comments come back to being outside and playing, but understanding where those safe spaces are as well for them on school sites. And then it's really just interpreting what are the key elements that they're trying to describe about how that makes them feel that we can then apply to, outdoor space in terms of design, but also indoor spaces that might reflect some of those feelings as well, and helped make them feel like they belong and that they're engaged and cared for. Really, essentially, that's basic grounding for a student to want to be at school.
When you say that we, with children, we always focus on how they feel,
Mm,
made me just realize that shouldn't we do that for everyone? How design space for how we really feel? I feel like sometimes we, like you as well, because you've done so many studies on neuroscience, neuroaesthetics, and architecture and biophilia. You know that for us to feel safe, we don't just absorb the visual, and so many people just focus on what they see, and people end up in spaces that doesn't make them feel good. To start architecture, what inspired me into this word was how the buildings made me feel.
absolutely, absolutely. No, you're right. Actually, it is a question that we should build into workshops with everyone that we work with, because essentially it's about the human condition. How do we make ourselves be our best? Is about how we feel in doing
Yes,
the things that we need to do every day.
I know. That's
Absolutely.
exactly
Yeah.
because when we nature, we just feel good, we just feel relaxed, we feel that we belong, and it's just simple. And sometimes I just feel like we're just complicating things a little bit, isn't
Yeah.
that?
Yes. Let's get back to basics. It's still alive.
That's right, isn't it? We took everything out. Like, I feel like there was a time in architecture, we took everything out and forgot that we're human beings.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yep. Some basic human needs. Yeah.
If the spaces you design could speak, what would they tell the people who use them?
This was a really great question. I really love this one. So I would like the space to say, you are welcome here. Settle in and make yourself comfortable. So,
No,
whatever reason you are there, you belong here. And hopefully, it will make someone feel comfortable to do whatever they need to do.
that's amazing.
I think, sort of, oh, sorry. Oh, I think that applies to all types of functions and spatial types, so residential, workplace, education, healthcare as well, and even industrial. As we've been talking about it, it speaks to designing with intent to improve the human condition. So you're prioritizing human need, well-being, and societal impact.
After you designed some space, you received so many great feedbacks. Is there anything that really touched you? Someone that came back to you and talked about this space that really touched your heart and you made you feel like that's very special. I feel so good I was able to provide that.
Probably come back to Christie Downs actually. The central mill spaces, and there were some little breakout areas where students could be to have some self-regulation time after the school had been in use for a while. The principal and deputy spoke about the children just loving spending time in that space. It felt like home. It felt like being in a kitchen where they were with their friends. There were adults there who were caring for them, and it just really set them up to have a great day. And you think, well, that was basically the whole purpose of it, and it worked. So that was really heartening to hear.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great way for us to finish this conversation because I think you brought so many beautiful inputs here that could help our listeners. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate your time.
You're very
And
welcome.
where can we find you?
If you look up my name on LinkedIn, we can definitely connect there. Thank you very much for having me. Actually, it's always a great conversation talking to you about the things that we love.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome. Bye.
I hope this conversation with Deb was as inspiring for you as it was for me. Even after years working with her, I still walk away reminding of how powerful our spaces can be when they are designed with intention, care, respect for the people who use them. When Deb talked about children feeling safe, included, and supported by their environment, it really touched my heart because that's exactly what I say on my book, Creating Healing Spaces for Children. If you're a parent or a carer, you're thinking, okay, but now how do I bring a little bit of this school level thinking into my home? This book is for you. Inside, I share simple, practical design ideas to help your children unwind after a big day, relax their nervous system, feel truly seen, held, and connect in their own spaces. You don't need a big budget to create spaces like that for your children or a brand new house. This is small, thoughtful changes that can make a big difference in how our home feel. You can find the link for my book on the show notes. And you can find my book on Amazon, Creating Healing Spaces for Children. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and send to someone else. Send to your sister, your friend, your mom. Let's just share the love with everyone. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time here.